to Washington.
Chaos. I mean, it was total chaos.
Tony Breedlove watched the waters rush in.
A bomb went off.
2 devastating floods in 2015 and 17 left his Fenton area neighborhood in shambles. Tony, determined to rebuild, accepted money from FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency.
I think it probably wasn't, no more than 14 days, and we had a check.
But his neighbors, he says, did something different.
They took the payouts. They took the payouts and bought a new car and drove out.
And Tony would know.
One, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. Yeah.
Now, years after the flooding, homes in this neighborhood stand abandoned. Debris litters the lawns. Windows are boarded up. Eerie messages remain scrawled across this home. Homes that neighbors tell us FEMA handed out tax dollars for to repair. FEMA wouldn't tell News 4 exactly which owners received payouts, citing privacy laws, but told us they paid close to $8 million in assistance and insurance in the Fenton area for the 15 and 17 floods.
It's for cleanup. All right? So why did they get the same amount of money as I did and they weren't forced to clean up?
I'd call it a disaster, a health hazard. That's what I'd call it. That's what it is. It's a health hazard.
Mark C. owns the RV park near Tony's home. Back in 2015, 24 mobile homes there were destroyed by the floodwaters. The people living in them simply abandoned them.
Only my tenants got money from FEMA. As a business owner, I got nothing from FEMA for free.
So instead, Mark paid out of his own pocket to demolish and clean up the properties.
And one of the biggest problems is in the summertime, after a rain, you can smell the house rotting. It just stinks.
Now he's trying to do something about the other abandoned homes around the RV park. If he doesn't, the county might be on the hook instead.
It is frustrating. I don't know why people do it.
Eric Larson, director of Jefferson County Services and Code Enforcement, says more than 180 homes in the county were substantially damaged by the floods.
It is a frustration for those that have just walked away and said, well, we're going to let the county or the city or someone else handle that. It's really not fair to our residents.
Now they're beginning a process to declare some of the properties public nuisances. Taxpayers would initially foot the bill to have them torn down, even though in some cases FEMA already paid out tax money for repairs that never happened.
We can't control the federal government and how they pay out.
A lot of people had no incentive. They had more incentive to walk away than to stay and clean up. And that's what FEMA's left us with over and over again.
Mark says it's just not fair.
Do you think FEMA needs to change the way they do business?
I think FEMA does.
He wonders, should FEMA require inspections or somehow hold people accountable to ensure the repairs are made? We took his questions right to FEMA.
The individual assistance program is really meant to just get people back on their feet, just to help them bounce back from a disaster.
FEMA spokesperson Mike Caponeri told us people receiving the payouts can decide whether to make repairs or not. The checks can be used for something else entirely.
Does FEMA want them to be using it for vacations or to go to the casino or to buy a new car? Is that the appropriate use?
Well, certainly the desire would be to get folks back into their home, into that safe, sanitary environment. But by and large, we do try to be deferential to them. In certain instances, if a household may decide that they want to relocate, we really do try to provide that flexibility to them.
He says FEMA will only ask for receipts of repairs if that person applies for assistance a second time. If they bought a new car, for example, they'd be denied additional funds.
What would you say to neighbors, though, who are concerned that does incentivize people to just abandon their properties?
We do allow that flexibility for the homeowners to best decide what to do with the assistance and for their families. But at the same token, we always try to put ourselves in the shoes of disaster survivors.
Caponeri says most people choose to make repairs. He feels for those like Tony and Mark, but says that's the way the law works and changes would have to come from Congress.
If there were to be large-scale changes, that's where it would be pursued at the federal level.
They don't care.
But some of the neighbors here say it's just not enough.
It shouldn't just be so harsh to write out checks and hand them out. They need to protect their money.
worried they'll be in the same boat if the creeks and rivers soon swell again.
FEMA says their process is very similar to car insurance, for example. If you wreck your car, the insurance company gives you a check and you can decide if you want to buy a new car or not. Jefferson County says a lot of their abandoned properties were more like fishing cabins, not really primary residences. Still, they say they're going to try to recoup the cost of demolishing those properties from the homeowners. We heard from one of those property owners who says she never intended to leave it like it is for so long, disputing the claim she abandoned it. She says life has just made it difficult for her to make the repairs. I'm Lauren Traeger, News 4 Investigates.